Hello, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear participants, dear teachers, dear learners. I'm very happy to be able to welcome you today to our webinar on teaching and learning with living heritage, based on lessons learned from a joint UNESCO EU project from which you will learn everything in the course of our webinar today. My name is Helena Drobna and I work in the Living Heritage entity. I am the regional officer for Europe in this entity, and I was in charge of coordinating the development and implementation of this project. This webinar today is actually the final webinar of this project, the final official webinar, which will present the results, everything we have produced, achieved, and the lessons learned. And for this, as you will see, we have invited our teachers and our learners to share with us their opinions. Before we start, I would like to say a couple of technical issues. As you know, this is a webinar, so we have to use all the possibilities it offers us. The first of them is that we will have this webinar in 3 languages. We have English, French, and Spanish. And you can very easily choose your channel. On the bottom, you see a kind of globe, and it's written interpretation on it. So you click on it and you choose your language. And that's how you can follow the interpretation. We have another advantage of the webinar, of Zoom webinar, which is the QA question and the chat. We have prepared 2 rounds of debate for you. And for each of the debate, my colleague Maite will share with you a question in the 3 languages, by which we invite you to share with us your experiences, your points of view, and whatever you would like to share with us around the topic of linking living heritage and education. Before I continue, I would just say a word of thanks to the European Commission and our colleagues Dorota Nige and Catherine Magnan and Anne Grady, who has accompanied us throughout this project until today. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our Director General for Culture, Mr. Ernesto Ottone, and for his welcome speech. Xiaomi, Eric.
On behalf of UNESCO, I would like to warmly welcome you to this webinar on teaching and learning with living heritage, which will present the key results of the joint UNESCO-European Union project engaging youth for an inclusive and sustainable Europe. In a world increasingly under economic, environmental, and social pressure, we need to work across silos and disciplinary boundaries to find creative and sustainable solutions to global challenges. UNESCO, as the United Nations agency with a core mandate in education and culture, provides a unique setting for a holistic and intersectoral response to global challenges. For this reason, the Assistant Director General for Education and myself launched in April 2020 an intersectoral initiative entitled Education and Culture Together in Action to Advance the SDGs. Living Heritage, in particular, has a lot to offer to education. Living Heritage improves the relevance of education programs and promotes learning on the appreciation of cultural diversity and the role of culture in sustainable development. This is, of course, one of the targets of SDG 4 on quality education. However, Living Heritage also needs education to develop broad social support for its safeguarding. Since 2017, we have been working on initiatives to safeguarding intangible cultural heritage in formal and non-formal education. Activities are currently underway in more than 50 countries around the world. Raising awareness among younger generation and supporting them to explore, recognize, and participate in the transmission of their living heritage is fundamental for vibrant and diverse societies. We were therefore very pleased to join hands with the European Union to develop and implement a joint project aimed at strengthening the connections between young people, cultural heritage, and education. By proposing an innovative approach to education, the project invited teachers and learners to explore and share their living heritage, making learning with living heritage an integral part of core school subjects. From mathematics and physics to literature and sports, students were learning with their intangible cultural heritage. The project notably created new spaces of expression for migrant children, allowed for the full participation for children with special educational needs, and importantly, facilitated appreciation for cultural diversity. In this webinar, we are going to share with you the key results of the pilot project, including the result of a pilot survey carried out among 2,000 primary and secondary ASP.NET schools in the EU. We will also be sharing the resources kits for teachers, which offers a step-by-step methodology on how to integrate living heritage in school-based learning, a series of 10 case studies based on the pilot project carried out by ASP.NET schools teams, as well as a set of practical tools and a series of short films documenting 3 of the pilot projects. I would like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to everyone involved, to our partners in the European Commission, as well as UNESCO's education and science sectors. A special thanks go to the teachers and learners, as well as the school directors and national coordinator of the UNESCO Associated Schools Network for their cooperation and support. And of course, also to the parents and guardians, bearers, and practitioners of living heritage who shared their priceless knowledge and skills with the learners. We hope that the resource materials, films, and tools produced will inspire many teachers to make living heritage part of their everyday teaching. I would like to invite you all to share the kit with your colleagues and help us safeguarding our precious living heritage by teaching and learning with living heritage. Thank you so much.
Many thanks to our Assistant Director General, Ernesto Otune. And now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Themis Christofidou, Director General for Education, Youth, Sports and Culture of the European Commission. Show them? Yes, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the European Commission, I would like to warmly welcome all teachers, students, representatives of educational organizations, and decision makers participating in this final workshop of the EU-UNESCO joint project, Engaging Youth for a Sustainable and Inclusive Europe. The idea of a joint EU-UNESCO project relates to the European Year of Cultural Heritage held during 2018. Engaging children and youth in heritage-related activities in their school's environment, facilitating intergenerational dialogue, and encouraging volunteering for heritage was the essence of the European Year. I would like to thank UNESCO for the excellent cooperation on linking cultural heritage with education. It is the first time that our two organizations have come together to address their common priorities in education and culture in a joint project. Today, when Europe faces challenges related to climate change, but also the rise of nationalism and xenophobia, it is important to focus on what brings us together. Our shared cultural heritage is a good example. Learning about all the forms of cultural heritage that surround us in our daily lives also means learning about the things that we have in common. The involvement of Europe's youth in the safeguarding and transmission of living heritage is fundamental for the sustainability of cultural heritage and of the European common mindset into the future. A resources kit on learning and teaching intangible heritage in the curricular and extracurricular activities will be presented today. I hope that teachers around Europe will be inspired and use it in their schools. The kit includes many impressive projects. One example is a project that comes from Cyprus, which integrates local crafts, lefkara lace and carob sweets into mathematics teaching methods. It wishes to raise teenagers' interest in local practices and at the same time facilitate maths learning. On our side as European Commission, we will continue investing in links between education, culture, and cultural heritage with the Erasmus Plus program. In addition, in 2022, for the first time ever, the European Solidarity Corps will have safeguarding cultural heritage as one of its priorities. I wish you many good exchanges at today's workshop and in the future. Thank you.
Many thanks for the message from the European Commission as well. And now we are already jumping directly into the action, and Joanna Tamash, our colleague who accompanied us throughout the crucial phases of this project, will now present us the project. Joanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Helena. I will share a PowerPoint presentation that I hope you can see now.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. In the next few minutes, I will walk you through the main activities of the project and its results. As you know, the project is a UNESCO EU joint project that was initiated in the context of the 2018 European Year of Cultural Heritage. The vision behind it was to strengthen the connections between heritage, youth, and education, and to encourage and stimulate young people to explore their cultural heritage and to actively participate in its safeguarding and its transmission in new and innovative ways. It was launched in January 2019, and it had two main components. The first component was about raising awareness for and learning with intangible cultural heritage in European schools. It was foreseen for 1.5 years, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it had to be pushed back a few more months. The second component consisted in organizing the European Young Heritage Professionals Forum, which was organized in May in Croatia, in Zadar, and brought together young professionals already working in the field of cultural heritage, both tangible, built, and intangible. But for the purpose of this presentation, I will focus on the first component. At the core of the project stood the question, why teaching and learning with living heritage? It was evident for us that by bringing together the two, it will be mutually beneficial. The first reason was that integrated in school-based education, living heritage contributes to achieving quality education. And that is SDG 4, particularly its target 4.7, which draws attention to the need to appreciate cultural diversity and highlights the culture's contributions to sustainable development. The second reason was that through formal and non-formal education, safeguarding that formal and non-formal education contribute to the safeguarding of living heritage. That is in the text of the convention itself, more specifically Article 2.3. While the project unfolded and the activities started to take shape and be implemented, both teachers and learners brought to light new reasons that for them made living heritage important in the classroom and in their activities. Their feedback was that based on their experiences, living heritage improve learning outcomes. It also showed that it connects theory with real life, which makes learning easier and more interesting for students. It also encourages multidisciplinary approaches and cooperation among teachers. It promotes students' well-being. It cultivates respect and appreciation for diversity, while also creating a space for everyone to participate. It helps young people to explore their identity. It strengthens the dialogue between generations. And last but not least, it explores local solutions to global environmental problems. The first step before starting any activity was to see, in fact, what are the current practices of teaching about and with living heritage. We thus conducted an online survey in primary and secondary ASP.NET schools in the European Union. That means children and youth aged from 11 to 18 years old. And the survey was implemented with the help and great contribution of the national ASP.NET coordinators, as they were the ones disseminating the study among their colleagues and networks at a national and local level. The study was carried out together with the UNESCO Chair on Education, Citizenship, and Cultural Diversity at the Lusofona University in Lisbon, Portugal, who will later on give you a more detailed overlook on the study methodology and its main findings. After having seen what are the practices, what are the challenges, what is missing, and what needs to be addressed in order for living heritage to be integrated effectively and creatively into education, the next step was to identify 10 school teams, each team formed by one teacher and one student from 10 UNESCO ASP.NET schools in the EU. The purpose was that each team will individually, but also as a group, work together with 2 UNESCO trained facilitators to develop special specific projects that they would implement back in their home, in their own school, with their colleagues in various subjects and extracurricular activities. The 10 school teams, together with the UNESCO trained facilitators, met for the first time in Vienna for an initial workshop. It was in October 2019, where the concept of living heritage was unfolded so that everyone feels comfortable with its meaning and relates to it on a personal level. During that workshop, the teams developed their projects, and then for the next 3 months, they implemented them back home in their schools. The teams met again, the second and last time, in February, March 2020, which was exactly before the lockdown, to share their experiences, their lessons learned, their challenges, and also to make recommendations for the future. A few things about the 10 school pilot projects that were implemented. It was important that living heritage is integrated in curricular subjects, core curricular subjects, such as civic education, computer-aided design, geography, mathematics, physics, economy, literature, languages, sport, music, and arts. And really show that it's versatile and can fit with any school subject. It was also integrated in extracurricular activities by thematic excursions organized by teachers, visits to cultural institutions, visits to artisans' workshops, and various school events, as you will see later on. With no exception, all school pilot projects used information and communication technologies and addressed a wide range of cross-cutting issues, such as cultural diversity, intercultural dialogue, and intergenerational dialogue. What is worth highlighting is that the project also included learners with special education needs, such as physical disabilities and children with an autistic spectrum disorder. The experience of the experiences of the 10 teachers and 10 learners, but also their colleagues back home, inspired and is reflected in the resource kit that was then developed for teachers across the European Union and beyond. I will not go into detail because Helena will give you an in-depth presentation of what the kit entails, its various resources. I will only say one thing, is that as part of the dissemination process, the team has organized already smaller workshops addressed at familiarizing teachers across the European Union with the approach of the project, with living heritage, with the many ways in which it can be integrated into the classroom. 2 workshops have already been organized earlier this month in English and German, and a series of other webinars are foreseen for the fall, in different languages of the member states of the EU. Greek, Slovak, Czech are already foreseen, but possibly others. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Oops, my camera. Okay, thank you very much, Joanna, for this great presentation. I think it summarized very nicely these last 2 years that we spent together. And we learned everything about the theory. And now I would like us to jump directly into the contents and see one of the project films that we did. This one will be from a special school with a very multicultural population of students. It will be from the Comenius, Campus Comenius in Belgium. And I would like my colleagues to play the film. Thank you.
My name is Rembert. I'm 26. I teach science, technology and global citizenship at Campus Comenius in Koekelberg in Brussels, Belgium. The school opened just 2 years ago. We are a young team striving for innovation in education. Our approach is based on blended and self-guided learning. We do our best to adapt to our students' needs and to today's global challenges. Last year, together with 9 other European teachers, I was selected for a Unesco European Union project on culture and education. The idea was to help us gain understanding of intangible cultural heritage and how we can bring it into the classroom. The project started with a training workshop involving both teachers and students. At the end of it, we worked in teams to prepare for the next step, creating original projects to implement back in our schools. During the workshop, I realized that we first needed to know more about the cultural backgrounds of our students, so we conducted an online survey. The results showed that the grandparents of our 140 students were born in 37 different countries across the globe. Then we organized an exhibition where students brought objects from home that reflected the culture of their family. The result was impressive. One student brought coffee beans from Indonesia, another a small figurine from his grandfather's community in Congo. We also had delicious orange cake from Portugal, Syrian soap, many beautiful jalabas or Moroccan dresses, and so on. We had no idea how culturally rich and diverse our students were.
Hallo, ik ben Jael en ik heb dit boek meegebracht omdat mijn grootouders en mijn vader van Mons komen. Dat ligt in België. En dat is een heel groot feest dat zich bevindt op de Grote Markt. En er is ook dit, dat is een stok met een scherppunt eraan en dan dood Saint-Georges de draak zo. Oui.
Je m'appelle Clovis. Aujourd'hui, j'ai ramené une kora. Une kora, c'est un instrument qui vient du pays de mon père, le Togo.
I've brought a kora today from my father's country in the Congo.
Je m'appelle Nour. Aujourd'hui, j'ai ramené une djellaba qui vient de Oujda. Ma maman et toute sa famille viennent de Oujda.
Which comes from where my mum
J'aime
comes from.
beaucoup ce djellaba parce qu'on peut la porter à l'intérieur comme à l'extérieur et c'est aussi une djellaba pour les filles.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Chanève et aujourd'hui j'ai ramené des bananes frites qu'on mange souvent au
Hello,
Nigeria.
I'm Sharon. I brought in baran fric that we eat in Nigeria. We often eat these at parties and festivals. My name is Philippe, and I have some delicious Czech and German treats. My mother is from the Czech Republic, and we often cook them at Christmas. These are slightly hard, but the others are better, I think. Yes, this one's the best.
My name is Maori and I'm 12. For the exhibition organized at our school, we I chose some samples of my grandfather's hanga printing. Hanga is an ancient Japanese printing technique that uses creative drawings, wood blocks, and different types of ink. I really like it. Every month my grandfather sends us hanga calendars. He makes around 50 of those each month for his family and friends. I have two favorites, one representing a rowing competition and another one of me wearing swimming goggles while cooking. I feel very close to my grandfather even though he lives in Japan, some 6,000 miles away from here. His calendars make me think of him, his hands, his gestures, his presence. These calendars have become his own way to keep us all bound together as a family, as we now all live in different cities across the globe. It keeps us connected to Japanese culture, which is very important to him and to us. My grandfather and I are very proud hanga printing was chosen for this project. We use it in different ways. During art classes, we try to replicate the entire process. We created designs, cut shapes, not in wood blocks but in linoleum squares, and printed them on worksheets. Each student could create their own drawings. We also looked at hanga through mathematics. Our teacher used the designs to teach us two geometric transformations, translation and rotation. We all enjoyed it and it helped us to understand abstract notions of mathematics. Our living heritage can help us learn more easily subjects at school. Looking at all of this, I can say I'm even prouder of my living heritage now than before. But above all, I find it so important to know more about our cultures and what we can learn from each other. Our living heritage tells us so much about where we come from.
So this is one of the films that we have produced. This one was produced with support from the National Commission for UNESCO of Flanders in Belgium. And we have Rembert and Mauri with us, and I hope they will tell us later on how it went. It was a great example of how can you deal with how can you integrate living heritage to create a space for every learner. We had another learner from the school in the beginning, Daoud, and he said that he was so touched and that this project created a real space. Nobody was listening to him, and then suddenly he could present his own culture to his classmates, and he felt very proud about it. Now I think it's time to see another example, and this time it will be an example from Greece, from a girls' school specific case from Greece, and it will be within the discussion on opportunities, challenges given to us by integrating living heritage into education. And I would like to ask Susanne Schnütgen, the head of the Capacity Building and Heritage Policies unit within the Living Heritage entity, to take the floor and moderate the debate. Susanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Helena, and hello to everybody. It's wonderful to see so much interest in this wonderful work on safeguarding living heritage in formal and non-formal education. Today, formal education. We do it also in non-formal education. So yes, I'm to moderate a very exciting panel where we will hear from the teachers and the learners of the project about about the benefits, opportunities, and challenges, starting with a presentation from Greece. Katerina Christodoulou from Greece is with us. Katerina, so lovely to see you again. Yes, and we're very happy because you actually agreed to share with us the experience of integrating Rebetiko in literature, English language, sports, and computer classes. So we are very curious to hear how you managed to do that. The floor is yours, Katerina.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure, a joy, and I'm very proud to be here with you to share what we did at our school. Let me share my screen with you before sharing anything else. Okay. All right. Can you all see my screen? Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes.
It's coming. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Very colorful.
Yes, I hope it's also easy for the eye. We worked on Rebetiko, which is an intangible cultural heritage element, mainly has to do with music and dance, and we integrated it in our normal everyday classes, in our daily teaching practice, in the subjects of Greek literature, English as a foreign language, physical education, and computers, ICT. There were 4 of us. I coordinated the project with my dear colleagues, Dimitris, Effie, and Dimitris, whom I thank very much for walking through this path with me. Our students are 15 to 17. We're an upper secondary high school in Greece. And we used, for all 4 subjects, the living heritage element as context-specific pedagogical material to help us reach subject-specific learning objectives. So it was not an extracurricular project. It was actually limited within the school in our everyday teaching practice, as I mentioned. Before I start telling you how we did this, however, let me tell you just a few words about what Rebetiko is. As I mentioned earlier, it's a musical and cultural tradition that developed in the early 20th century in the main urban centers of Greece, one of which is Piraeus, where our school is located. It involved collectivity, anonymous creation, and oral diffusion, and many of its poetical and musical features are connected with the song tradition of the Greeks of Asia Minor, where I come from, and the Aegean Islands. Now, Rebetiko songs nowadays are a standardized repertoire, and we use them, we dance or sing to them in almost every social occasion involving music and dance. As you can see, what we actually did was in 4 subjects, English as a foreign language, physical education, Greek literature, and ICT, but we also had an educational visit, which I will talk about at the end of the presentation. So let's start with English. We used as pedagogical material the nomination, the text by the Greek Ministry of Culture for the inscription of Rebetiko on the Unesco representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Of course, it was adapted. The text was too long for classroom use, I mean. And the subject-specific objectives that we aimed at were for students to acquire new vocabulary, to improve comprehension of formal and authentic written texts, and to enhance learners' written and oral communication and presentation skills. So as you see, this lesson plan, the one that had to do with English, actually addressed the cognitive domain of the competencies, and it also provided the historical and socio-cultural background of the element. But on top of that, it also familiarized students with the concept of living heritage. This was reinforced by the educational visit that you can see on the left. Students attended 3 short ethnographic films at Ethnofest, which is an ethnographic festival organized by the Ministry of Culture and Sports in Greece. And after watching the films, they discussed with an expert on culture and cultures in general and cultural heritage. Actually, one of the comments of the students after watching the films on our way back to school on the bus was, well, I didn't know that I knew those things that I thought that I did not know. So this is obviously raising cultural awareness to the particular student. I think this was the best comment of the whole project, this metacognitive, let's say, comment. Let me go on, however, with the lesson plans in physical education, because there are no music classes in upper secondary schools in Greece. The steps of the three main rebetiko dances were actually our pedagogical material. So the subject-specific objectives according to our national curriculum that were addressed were to improve the students' kinesthetic and coordination skills and team spirit, because there was a lot of peer teaching there, as some of the students who knew some of the steps of one or maybe all dances were the teacher's assistants, let's say, and so peer teaching really bonded this class. Another objective was to perceive physical activity as an essential cultural element that addresses basic human needs, such as self-expression, creation, and belonging. And I would add there the students' well-being as well, since in Greece, the educational system is strictly exam-oriented, as students, through dancing, released some of this stress. At the end of the school year, I should say, the whole school danced with the rebetiko songs. Other groups asked the sports teacher to teach them the steps. Of course, this addressed the social and emotional domain of competencies, but at the same time, it helped safeguard by practicing the dances themselves. At the same time, students also learned the origin, the evolution, but also the meaning of each dance and its move of each dance. Okay, let me move on to Greek literature now. The pedagogical material that was used were the actual lyrics of three popular rebetiko songs depicting gender stereotypes. As Elena mentioned earlier, we are a girl-only school. So for us, you know, stereotyping against women is not very pleasant. I'm joking, of course. These were the three types of women mainly represented in the rebetiko songs: the beauty, the heartless one, and the gold digger. These were the three stereotypical images of women there. The subject-specific objectives were to improve students' critical thinking on contemporary civilization by analyzing and discussing the lyrics, but also to discuss past and contemporary social aspects, again using the lyrics and listening to the songs in class, but also to improve their reading skills and writing skills and enrich their vocabulary at the same time through creative writing exercises. That is, write this song from the point of view of a woman, as if it was sung by a woman to a man. It was amazing. The results were amazing. Unfortunately, I cannot translate them. They are idiosyncratically Greek, and I'm sorry, but I cannot offer a translation. Again, this addressed the social and emotional domain of competencies, at the same time also safeguarding the ICH element by identifying connotation and idiosyncratic elements within the rebetiko verse. And last but not least, in information and communication technology, students, well, the end product of the syllabus of this course is for students to design an application for mobile phones. So we decided to actually design the rebetiko application, in which this was the theme. So students documented and disseminated the school's project through their application. As part of the syllabus of their ICT class. Of course, this was our action-centered domain of competencies. And as I mentioned earlier, we used that to disseminate the school's project. If I may, I would like to thank my dear colleagues. We had worked on many projects before, but I think that this one with these colleagues, Dimitris, Effie, and Dimitris, but this one was one of our favorites because we all like rebetiko very much. The ICH itself, that is. And I would also like to thank very much our national coordinator, Mrs. ASP.NET coordinator, Mrs. Dilari, Vera Dilari, who wholeheartedly supported us from day one. That's it. Thank you very much.
Katarina, thank you. Really, this was such an excellent presentation, and it makes it sound quite complex but easy and clear. I mean, you were able in a few minutes to just show how with Living Heritage in schools, we can improve the way students learn, to apply a holistic approach, and really cutting across different subjects. So you have been showing how your students did not only learn more about living heritage that is practiced in your larger school community, but also learning with it. And that is what we find particularly important. And even maybe continuing transmission, and you talked about interpretation of the songs. So that was particularly exciting, I thought, that you had very creative students who got involved in the transmission process. Thank you so much. I wanted to encourage people, if you have questions for Katarina, we have the chat, and either we manage to address them now, or otherwise we will make sure to transfer them to Katarina so that you can ask your questions directly to her. We have more interesting testimonies of teachers and learners to come. So I will revert to that, and we can always come to look at the chat later. So once again, a warm thank you to Katarina, and a warm welcome to some other teachers. We have today with us Ms. Olympia Orfanido from Cyprus. We have Ms. Maria Isabel Brion Caino from Spain, Ms. Christy Caldme from Estonia, as well as some of the students and the learners. So there is Konstantinos Antonio from Cyprus, who is called within the project the mathematics experts, and you will see why. Sarah Caride Pinheiro, who is the musician. Kaspar Medvedsky from Estonia, expert in karma recipes. And Mauri, who you already met through the film, Mauri de Corgeler Ueba from Belgium. So all of them will take the floor to tell us a little bit more about their specific experiences. And I would like to start with the question of what you're taking away from it, to talk about the benefits of this work. Maybe the first round of contributions, we could focus on this. So maybe I could ask Olympia to start. Olympia, you have the floor.
Yes, hello everyone. Well, I'm so excited by what I have lived through this project, because basically I have come to realize that behind ICH lies a treasure when it comes to mathematics, because we always look for new ideas and new problems to ask our students and develop their critical thinking. And in ICH, the opportunities to do so are endless. You can actually enjoy the lesson more, because the students are not wondering anymore, how am I gonna use this in my life, which is the most popular question in a math classroom. They actually see that you can use it in a plethora of ways and have an enjoyable time being taught mathematics and being involved as well in the whole process, because you're not just sitting there using your pencil or pen, writing the problem and trying to find the solution. You're actually trying to understand what was happening or what is keep happening, it's living heritage, and create pictures in your head, if not anything else, because you try at the same time you are living a fairy tale, a story, and you can imagine that you are the protagonist of this story, and it makes the whole experience so much more fun. And
yeah,
you appreciate mathematics so much more.
That sounds wonderful. I'm now really interested. We have Konstantinos. Let's see if the student's perspective is similar to the teacher's perspective, or maybe some other aspect that Konstantinos that you would like to add. Please, you have the floor. And thank you for being with us.
I actually think I'm kind of this. I have the same, I guess. It helped me really to understand how you can use mathematics in your everyday life and to see what the concept of mathematics is. And now that I'm actually, I mean, I was really interested in mathematics already, but the fact that I got to see how my culture could, let's say, how it helped me to understand that everything around me is mathematics, and how, well, I don't know, it is just
Yeah, no, that's very clear and very exciting. So you felt mathematics has a real place in life. Huh? It's about life. It's not just about abstract figures, if I get you right.
Yeah, it's not just concepts. It is all around us, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I may tell the floor that, in fact, we had the pleasure of seeing Konstantinos also work with the community. And I tell you, it's really very much real life experience, from measuring things with cookie making and all sorts of things. It was just fascinating. Well, let's have a look now. Who else do we have? We have Sarah, no, from Spain. Do you want to say hi? Or maybe you're mute. Are there? Yes, Sabela and Sarah are there together. Sarah, would you like to start maybe this time, the student? What are the benefits? What are you taking away from the project in Spain? And maybe tell people a little bit what you did so that they know what you're talking about.
Bueno, sí, pues buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon. Mainly, we found the project very interesting because we learned a lot about a culture very close to ours that I didn't really know well. I had heard a bit about them and that what we call the Medero and all that it implied. So we researched this figure, and we also touched on other subjects in other fields. For example, we were able to relate to our relatives, to our grandparents on the basis of culture and tradition. And therefore, this was a very emotional experience. It wasn't just learning at school. It was also emotional learning about respect, respect for the efforts made by our families, by our relatives, by our grandparents and all their work. That's pretty much it.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Very nice. And we'll have the opportunity to watch the film that you guys made, I think, in a minute. But Sabela, is there anything you would like to add to what Sarah said?
Good afternoon. I would simply just like to say, on the basis of the character that we worked on, that is, we worked on Intangible Cultural Heritage in Galicia. That's Merdero, a figure, a character who's a carnival figure in Galicia. We tried to address the rivalry between farmers and seafarers in the region. And this helped us associate two aspects which we didn't think could be related to one another. First of all, emotion and entertainment, which we related to more serious subjects like fishing, agriculture, the different idiosyncrasies of our people. We also looked at artistic, literary, even musical, the creativity of our students with this experience, which we're continuing to work on. Thank you.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Yeah, and we'll watch the film in a little while. But I see we also have Christy and Kaspar from Estonia. Christy, would you like to tell people what you guys worked on and what you have taken away from it as in terms of benefits?
Well, our project mostly, we tried to include already existing topics and join them through one specific element, which is a food called kama, which is very well known in Estonia. So we approach from that perspective that sort of everybody has some sort of an idea about it, but they probably don't know that much. So we had a recipe that we based a lot of it around, and they discussed the recipe in Estonian language lessons and discussed about the historical period from where it was from. And in maths, they did all kinds of calculations surrounding the recipe, percentages and so on. And then in English lessons, we talked about food in general, and also the students got to create their own recipes using kama as sort of the stepping stone there. And
that must have been the best part, no?
Well, you have to ask Kaspar that later on. He was one of those students. But I think the main thing was that we tried to find an element that would already be familiar to the students, so it would relate to it a bit more perhaps than to something that they would not be that familiar with. So that was the main idea with us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christy. Kaspar, what would you like to say about the experience?
The experience was very interesting, learning about the normal sort of subject from a more intriguing perspective. For me, especially, one of the things we did was take a old Estonian recipe, kama recipe, which was in Old Estonian. And as someone who is interested in history and literature, that was very exciting to translate that old Estonian recipe into a more modern take of the recipe. So overall, it was a very amazing experience.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I think because our program, we have a lot of things we still want to do today. So I want to also talk a little bit about challenges with you, to hear about that, because there are often we meet teachers and they say, oh yes, but you know, I have so much to do already and the curriculum is overloaded and I don't have time and I cannot learn something else now. So we know there are challenges in this work, and we would like to hear, and also of course how you address them, how you manage to overcome them. Maybe Katerina, because I think you didn't really speak about the challenges, you presented more the conceptual framework of the whole work. Would you mind maybe sharing also some thoughts on that with us, please?
Of course. Thank you, Suzanne. All of the challenges that you mentioned hold true, all of them. Okay. However, you need to go the extra mile sometimes in order to achieve different things or to have higher quality results or to experiment. Depending. We overcame these challenges, although for us it was too late to, at the end of October when we came back from Vienna, it was not a convenient time to start a new project. This, however, helped us in the sense that if we cannot do an extracurricular project, if we cannot devote more time, let's do it within the classroom. So it became even more interesting. In fact, it was the challenge was added value to the rebetiko lesson plan set. However, you need to have like-minded colleagues at school. If not like-minded colleagues who trust you and say, okay, again, what's the idea? What are you going to do again? So if they trust you, and if you work closely with them on different projects, then, the one helps the other in a way. It's not that you're doing it alone. It's a team, it's a group. So things are much better. So it's not an one man or an one woman show. It's team. And so this also provides a very good model for students when they see their teachers collaborating. It's not just teachers talking like you should work with your, teamwork is important. No, they see it in front of their eyes, that teamwork between teachers, among teachers, is there. So yes, all the challenges that you mentioned hold true. It takes a spark of enthusiasm, a little bit more interest, and good friends, like-minded people, if you ask me.
Beautiful, very beautiful. And yes, collaborative teaching. That's what I'm hearing from what you say. I saw that Rembert and Zeno are both nodding their heads. Rembert, would you like to maybe add to something to what Katerina just said from your perspective?
Yes. So hello, everyone. I'm first so proud to see the video on this stage worldwide presented. And I also would like to thank the UNESCO and the Flemish UNESCO Commission for attributing to the development of the film. In addition to what Katerina said, yes, indeed, it's a challenge to collaborate, but I think it can be also seen as an opportunity that the way of teaching can be also changed by doing these kind of projects, by collaborating between teachers, indeed. And I think that using ICH as a content can be a way of reaching more transformative education, which is very much needed. So yeah.
Oh yes, transformative education. And maybe I can just mention for UNESCO that is a very high priority, because all the learning for sustainable development, global citizenship education, learning to appreciate cultural diversity, understanding the role of culture in development, all of these very important learning objectives are now also internationally recognized in the Sustainable Development Goals. I think it's important to remind ourselves and also others who we work with about that, because it just shows that there is a commitment worldwide for this work beyond Europe, of course, in all regions, which is part of the beauty of what we're doing. But Zeno, I think you wanted to say something about it, no? Maybe you could briefly say what you guys did in the Netherlands.
Briefly, then I have to talk 10 minutes because that is my whole presentation. But first of all, it's very lovely to see everybody from other schools, Spain, Belgium, Greece, Cyprus. Lovely to see you all. Yes, finally we can meet each other again. So lovely to be there today. I think the hardest challenge for us, was the whole organization behind this project. That is time consuming, but at the end, we finished our project with good results and a lovely learning experience for all students. So I think that is the benefit, they all enjoyed it. But the hardest challenge is the organization part behind it. And what did we do? We did just a simulation in class to simulate role-playing of a typical Dutch thing. It's called polderen. And polderen means decision-making process in the Netherlands. So that's the main concept we did for our ICH project. Is that short enough? Or must I
Wonderful.
continue?
That was excellent, really. And you get extra points for a succinct presentation. Bravo.
Yes, we do.
Yes, that's super. I'm sure you learned that also in the course of that work. Well, we soon are moving to the next point on our agenda, but maybe I can just ask Maite Zeiser, a colleague who is actually doing always miraculous work with the chat. That's a new skill we all have to acquire. How do you manage a chat? Maite, is there a question that you would like to read for us and maybe one of the teachers can answer? Please.
Yes, thank you, Suzanne. It's so wonderful to see everybody. It's very exciting. So just to say that a couple of teachers have been sharing very interesting experiences on the chat, so you can also have a little look to what other teachers have been doing in different parts. And there's a lot of curiosity for this work. So one of the questions that has been asked is if teachers can explain a little bit more about how did they integrated this in their work? I mean, how concretely it happens? What were the steps they took to make this possible? That was one of the questions. Then also one of the participants wanted to know if all the projects were conducted by teachers or if there was like a sort of cultural mediator, and how did you manage to engage students and the community in this work? That was one of the questions too.
Yeah, maybe that's already very good, Maite. We can maybe allow one or two teachers to say something about this. Who would like to take one of these questions? What were the steps? How did you exactly do it? Or secondly, how did you manage to develop this collaboration with the communities?
We have Olympia.
Olympia, please. You have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, in order to get the students interested and excited on the whole idea, because at first they were skeptical, we started with extracurriculum activities. We actually visited the two villages where the ICH we are aiming to introduce in the lesson were still in practice. And the students created short films of the ICH and the craftsmen working on them. So the introduction in the classroom was done with these short films. So first we introduced the ICH. We had a short discussion on them, on both of them, because we had two different classes. And then we started step by step introducing the concept of mathematics. That we were going to connect with each one of them. To be honest, when it came to the left analysis, I used GeoGebra. I believe STEM teachers around the globe know GeoGebra. So basically, I introduced the picture of the lace in GeoGebra, and we started slope lines and the angle between two intersecting lines and so on, using the laces. But
wonderful.
Those were the steps.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Helena, here, you're the timekeeper. Should we can we take one more, or should we move on?
I think we should move on, but I think there was already Katerina raised a hand immediately. So if she goes very short, we can take her.
Okay, so Katerina, you're the final.
I'll be very, very short. In literature, for example, we integrated as a normal, integrated ICH as a normal lesson plan. There was a warm-up stage where students listened to the songs, and then a brief history behind each song, and then creative writing exercises within, in groups within the class. Homework was to try and write a song from the point of view of a man writing the song for a woman. So creative writing exercises was what literature was based on. English was based on flipped classroom. The students studied the nomination text at home and came back into class with questions, answered questions on the meaning of the text, and there was then discussion about war, refugees, exchange of populations, the whole social, historical background of Rebetiko, and also about what cultural heritage means. Homework was for them to make a presentation of their favorite songwriter, singer, or song, speaking in the first person, saying, I am Soteria Bellu, for example. I was born there. So this also, empathy was also worked on during this method, or made them sort of like a role play, let's say. These are the techniques used in our case. Thank you.
Beautiful. And I would like to reassure everybody that has been asking questions in the chat that all of this experience has actually been processed into a resource kit. And that is actually what Helena is now going to present. Thanks to all the inputs from the teachers and the students who participated. It's very much collective work, and we had brilliant facilitators also. So Helena, I hand it back over to you to present this useful resource to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanne. And thank you all the teachers and learners for the debate. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to hear more from, I see Yada, Maori, and maybe a song from Sarah, but we will have to catch up another time. Right now, I would like to present to you the resource kit, which is actually the result of all these endeavors, joint endeavors we did. I will try to share my screen. Just a second. I apologize, my computer is a little bit slow. So what I would like to share with you now is basically the resources for teachers. So it's more than one single resource. There is a package of resources that are meant to serve teachers in the most handy and practical way to integrate living heritage into their education. As Jona mentioned before, we did a survey in the beginning of the project, and Marcello Murta will mention this in the second part of our discussion. I'm just showing you the beautiful design we are very proud of the pilot study. And the interesting thing which can be very useful for teachers in this pilot study are these 10 small case studies that are at the end. Because what we were looking at in this work is what exists already out there before we started implementing our project. And what we found was actually a wealth of examples which can be used. I put just several of them here on the screen, and you see that it goes from a similar case like we had rebetico, this time is flamenco. We had, for example, the olive oil, or using marble games in physics. But one that I found very interesting is that I think it was in Spain, they used a craft process, traditional crafts process, to teach children programming, developing algorithms. So that's quite an interesting approach, and you can have a look at them. There are 10 of these small case studies, and they are at the back of the survey. Then the next resource is what we call the resource kit for teachers, and we will share with you this PowerPoint. The little red yellow EN and FR means that it's already available in English and French. And the resource kit contains a practical guidebook which provides you with a methodology. There is a step-by-step guide on how to do it. It's based on the experiences. We try to analyze them together with our facilitators, Vanessa Agiles and Tamara Nikolic-Jeric. And we developed this practical guidebook for you. Then there are 10 case studies. These are much bigger case studies than the ones I showed you before, and we will show them later on. They are based on the pilot projects that we implemented. So the teachers, whatever they told you, it's reflected in these pilot case studies, and you can go back and read more about them. Then we have developed also a set of practical tools. We have for now only 3, but the idea is to see this document as a living document, which means that this is the basic set we are sending to you, and we hope that we will get much more back and diverse examples and other practical tools that we will be able to add to our resources. We have also produced 3 films. You have seen one of them. You will see another in a while, but we have also short versions of the film. So the films are produced in 2 lengths. One of them is the full film, which explains the pedagogy and the methodology, and the other one is much more of a kind of teaser if you need to pass on the message in a rather quick way. They are under 1 minute each. All these things are available on our webpage, which I will show you in a minute. Here, just very quickly, the content of the materials. You can see that we are starting by explaining what it is about and what it is for. And then we are going into what is living heritage, because what we saw in the survey, and Marcello may tell us more about it, is that very often teachers say, yeah, we are working with living heritage or intangible cultural heritage, but this intangible cultural heritage is a little bit kind of mixed concept, or it's received in a mixed way. People very often think that, for example, theater, because you cannot touch it, it's intangible. Any theater, any music, radio, design, and many different art forms, but this is not according to the definition of our 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. So we are bringing all these together in the beginning of the kit and making sure that we discuss the same kind of living heritage. Then we are making the links between living heritage and education. Why should you integrate it? And here the request of the teachers, of our 10 pilot school teachers, was they need arguments when they have to bring other people on board, be it the director, be it other colleagues in the schools. And we try to put together everything they found through the project as arguments to convince someone why learning with living heritage is something that they should do. And then, as I already mentioned, it's the step-by-step approach to integrating living heritage in education. And you will see that we go from understanding the context to selecting the element, to developing your documents, bringing people on board, bringing communities on board, your parents, your villages or your cities, quarters, whatever comes into question in your environment, and then up to evaluating the results. The 10 case studies, as I already mentioned, they were developed according, or they are reflecting the 10 projects. They were put together by the teachers together with the facilitators. And you can see that it goes from Glöcklerlauf in Austria, the Japanese hanga that you saw. You heard about Levkara laces and karob. We have the Masopust Carnival in Czech Republic, Kama recipe that Christy was mentioning very briefly. And on the image, you see the poldering that Zino just mentioned. Then we have Rebetiko mentioned by Katarina. We have Kuchikai Christmas cookies from Lithuania, poldering, an example from Poland, where they are using patterns that you see on this beautiful image, and the Omerdero, from which you will hear much more in a second. The practical tools, the idea behind these tools was to provide teachers with something they can print and go with it. So they are not beautiful, I mean, they are not colorful and designed, they are very, very practical and down to earth. This is the one that I would like to highlight, which is the one that is showing the linkages between living heritage and the subjects that you are teaching. When you look at it a little bit closer, can I increase my screen? Here you have, for example, mathematics, languages, economies. How can you integrate living heritage into language? You can write songs, you can write text, you can analyze, read, etc., etc. So there are different, sorry, this went too far, different things you can do with the handouts. Here there are the three films that we did. One of them is Omerdero, you will see it in a minute. One of them is from Austria, Glöcklerlauf, and the last one you already saw. And here you have also active links to the full version or to the SM means social media version, which are the short versions. Thank you very much for the presentation. For your attention, of course. One thing that I would like to show you in addition to this is where you find the materials, because it's a tricky thing, and I will show it to you on our webpage. This is the Intangible Cultural Heritage webpage of UNESCO. I cannot see the upper line because I have the bar from Zoom on there. Just a second. So if you go to, you will go to safeguarding, engaging youth here. I hope you see my little hand. Click. You are on the project and you can see, read much more.
Sorry, Helena, I think it's not working. We still see your PowerPoint.
Okay. I have to stop sharing and start sharing again. I apologize. Now it should work. Do you see the web page now?
Yes.
Perfect. So you have to follow my hand, my little white hand here, safeguarding. When you click on that one here, engaging youth for, this is the whole project. And here you can find the description of the project and the films and everything. And if you go here, you can see it. I click on it. And these are the resources for teachers. So here you have all the materials in English and French, starting with the survey, the resource kit, case studies, practical tools, films, and you will have also the recording of our session of today here on this web page. So I hope that will be useful for all of you. This is all from the site. I see that there are a couple of questions. I don't know if they are related to this presentation. Maite, is there anything concrete for this presentation about the early date in Spanish? Yeah, this is maybe some. Yes, Maite.
So sorry, Helena, because you were asking. No, mainly the questions are related to the materials, if they will be available in other languages. I was actually replying that there is also a pilot project that will be developed in the Latin American region and the Caribbean to complement and continue expanding the experience. But there is no specific question related to the booklets.
Yeah. When it comes to the materials and different languages, we have within this project, we were able to go this far. If there is request, we developed it in a way that you can take it and run with it. So you are most welcome to translate these documents, to adapt them to your conditions, to make webinars for your teachers. What we can offer to do is to present you these materials, and this is something we will continue doing. As Jana said, as of September, we will organize more webinars, or the national ASP.NET coordinators will actually organize more webinars for their teachers in their languages to spread around the word. And if we manage to mobilize additional funding, we may look into other language versions, but this is, for now, we do not have any concrete plans to go further. Thank you very much for this. And I think now we have the materials. We have learned about the project themselves, and we could now move to what we have learned, what we are taking with us, and what are the recommendations of the project. And for this, we are going to the second part of the discussion, which will be this time oriented towards lessons learned. Just a second. I have to stop sharing my screen. And my colleague Julie Saito from the ISP.NET unit, the head of the ISP.NET unit, will moderate the second section, which will start with a presentation from the UNESCO Chair on Education, Citizenship and Cultural Diversity at the Lusofona University in Portugal, that has joined us to help us with the survey. So I am giving over to Julie Saito. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Helena.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Julie Saito, as Helena kindly introduced me. I'm the international coordinator of the UNESCO Associated Schools Network. We call it ASP.NET. First of all, we are very, very happy that our network with 12,000 members in 182 countries were actually invited to take part in your beautiful project. And I would like to congratulate all involved in this inspiring project, and especially those teachers and students here today with us. I really congratulate you in particular. And I'm sure that this development resources will be an important tool for teachers around the world to start their own projects with Living Heritage. As Helena already mentioned, we will start with the presentation of key results of the pilot survey by the research team from the UNESCO Chair on Education, Citizenship and Cultural Diversity at the Lusofona University in Lisbon, Portugal. It will be presented by Mr. Marcelo Muta on behalf of the research team led by Professor Maristela Santos Simayo with Angelo Billesimo, Erika du Abreu, Goncalves and Natalia Palmio. Mr. Muta, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Judy. Thank you also, Elena and Joanna and all UNESCO team for facilitating this webinar. And it's an honor to participate in this meeting. And I will try to be very brief in my presentation, showing the main findings, the key findings and recommendations from our survey. First, I have to share my screen, just a moment. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, right. Okay, just a brief word, just some brief words before starting my presentation. The survey was developed by a team of experts and researchers from Lusófona University here in Lisbon, Portugal, where we have a UNESCO chair on education, citizenship, and cultural diversity. Well, the idea of the survey was to have or to take a big picture of education and ICH in the European context, trying to reach all 28 countries in the regions and have inputs and other data from teachers and from the schools where we could find projects related to ICH and education. We had a sample including 524 respondents from 23 European countries. Some of the countries they didn't reply to the survey, but most of the region is well represented as it's shown on this map. And we, of course, we tried to address the ICH main issues, but also to include some contemporary issues to our research, including youth and community engagement, use of new technologies, how the countries and their schools approach to minorities and issues like immigration and refugees. And as it was mentioned by Elena, we had to pay special attention to the concept of intangible cultural heritage as it is presented by the 2003 UNESCO Convention. So we tried to bring a self-reflection through the survey, where the teachers, when reading and responding to the questions, they had some orientation texts to guide them through the survey. So the idea was to bring some of the living heritage main issues related to ethics, mutual respect, and intercultural dialogue, and also the idea of ICH transmission, but also avoiding some approaches related to folklore and specularizing cultural expressions. So we have here a presentation of the profile of the teachers that responded to the survey. As you can see, most of them, they come from languages and humanities areas, and over 80% of them, they have previous experience in the education sector, and we have an average age of 47 years old of respondents. And another important data is related to the gender, as over 75% of respondents were women. Of course, this is also very correlated to the statistics related to teachers, as we have in most of the countries, and most of the teachers they are women. But it's interesting to see how almost all of the activities are developed by women. Now, I would like just to bring some some data related to the activities developed and the integration of practitioners. Well, more than 60% of the activities, they are organized within the current curriculum of a regular subject. And over a half of the school activities, they are developed, that they involve individual practitioners or groups of practitioners. But on the other hand, we have some we have some difficulties expressed by some teachers to include the practitioners in curricular activities. As you can see, how the practitioners are involved in the activities. Most of them, they go to school to have this relation and to develop their activities. And we have less activities developed in the communities or in their territories, for example. Another key issue is related to the use of new technologies, because as you can see, most of teachers, they have responded that they use the new technologies, almost of them using mobile phones, video recording, and photo editing. And we have some key issues addressed by the teachers related to the development of applications for mobiles, and some points that it's interesting to bring. For example, how to manage the prohibition of cell phones in schools in some contexts. Some of the teachers expressed this kind of difficulties. And another issues is related to availability of devices in schools. Now, just some words about the training and capacity building, specifically on IC8. Most of respondents, as you can see, more than 75%, they do not have any specific training on IC8. And at the same time, they are not involved in any activity related to ICH practices. On the other hand, more than 80%, they are interested in receiving more information and support, what brings a kind of a nice opportunity to develop training and capacity building activities. So I'm just finishing my presentation with 2 slides bringing the key findings of the survey. Well, as it was discussed before, it contributes to the professional development of teachers. It increases the awareness about ICH and reinforces cultural identities. It stimulates learners' creativity and curiosity. It improves learners' social skills and teamwork. It recognizes the cultural diversity and promotion of intercultural dialogue. It's interesting to bring, for example, the case presented here in Belgium, where you have a lot of diverse aspects of different regions of the world from ICH experiences brought to a school where they could maintain this dialogue approach. And finally, the possibility for integrating traditional knowledge and new technologies. We have finally some preliminary recommendations. First of all, the maintenance of continuous training and capacity building on ICH and education for teachers, and a transversal integration of ICH in national curricula, as most of the activities, they are developed within the national curricula. So it's important to bring ICH to ministries and to the national curricula discussions. discussions. And take advantage of the use of new technologies to have a very contemporary approach to ICH. Also bring this awareness raising on ICH for our teachers from all subjects and backgrounds. We have seen a lot of experiences from a lot of subjects, but the survey has showed that most of respondents were from specific areas related mostly to humanities and languages. Also encouraging the involvement of traditional bearers and practitioners in learning activities, integrating cultural diversity and SDGs in the ICH capacity building process, stimulating teachers in recognizing and promoting other ICH practices than local ones. As it was mentioned, it is already happening in some schools, but it's important to affirm this approach in terms of bringing together the cultural heritage of locals and of immigrants, of refugees and other minorities. And finally, the strengthening of local and international networks of teachers to foster ICH practices. It's important to have this network and this environment of interchange in between teachers to foster and to strengthen the ICH projects in all European contexts and also in all world countries. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I tried to be very brief and have here my contacts if you have any questions or any concerns. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcello. A very, very good work. I think we understood very well from the survey some interesting elements about the kind of a profile of the teachers who are really interested and motivated. And I think that you highlighted elements so much on sort of like sort of like refugees and minorities and youth and those people that we often did not really include so well in the more like a conventional classroom. I think that ICH really is definitely a way that we can really be so inclusive, and it would be a way to approach and then to communicate and then really promote this intercultural dialogues through free expression. And sometimes it's without words. I think that that takes out that barriers. And definitely this is one way that we could really consider how the world could be more just and sustainable. That really made me think that there's so many great a way that we can even further explore through this project. And thank you very much. And I think that we don't have much time, but I would like to invite those 6 panelists today to ask your opinions, those panelists, but how these recommendations that Marcello just presented, how you perceive and how you think that these kind of recommendations could reach out to education policy makers, and how this kind of curricula could be integrated into in the classroom, and what does it take, and how you would sort of propose through your experience. It's something that I would very much like you to now think, and during which I would also like to invite all the participants today to use the chat box to also write in any comments or any questions related to how would you need to start and continue teaching with living heritage, and policies and funds and partners, how you see that, how these kind of resources should be mobilized and materials and so on. If you have any sort of questions or comments, and please do, so that Maite may be able to share some. If not, we will definitely share through the materials after the webinar. So now, since we have heard Marcello's recommendations, may I ask those participants mainly about the questions. First, how could school governors be supportive of realizing teaching and learning with living heritage? What resources you would wish for in order as a teacher to make this kind of curricula or project be being integrated into your classroom? Can I ask someone to raise a hand so that maybe you would like to answer to this question? Yes, Olympia, thank you. Olympia, thank you. If you could be very short, a minute or two, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a short answer, basically, because in mathematics we are using a lot of problems to introduce new contents in the books that the ministry is offering to us. So an idea could be that they could actually develop a book with problems based on ICH. That is very practical and very easy to do.
Thank you very much. Any others may want to take the floor? Yes, Katerina, please.
Yes, I think that our experience during this project with our facilitators and the whole team was training. Okay, this is how we put things down, went step by step, and from small projects, we are now developing in my school, we're developing a mega project on the Mediterranean diet and linked to a million other things based on transformative education. But I was trained to do that. So I think that training is what is necessary. Of course, national legislations or national educational systems, etc., are diverse. Okay, but I believe that each country, maybe through the national coordinators, I don't know, just an idea, or maybe through the curriculum developers in collaboration with national coordinators or with UNESCO in general, could actually push this through, because this is how I learned. And now I'm doing something, I'm continuing projects, and I'm doing something much bigger, linking it to many more things than the Rebetiko project, which was rather limited because it was a pilot one. Training, training, training. That's the answer for me.
Thank you very much. Sabella? Your mic.
Bien, nosotros consideramos que es importante.
We believe that it's important to know the curricula and the skills so that it can be justified at an educational level. And we also think it's important to find like-minded colleagues who you're at ease working with. You have to make sure that they have motivation, because otherwise there's no point. That's our view.
Thank you. Yes, can I ask, sorry, can I see the name? Yes, Mr. Sorry, I don't see the name, sorry, in front of my screen. Let's see, Zeno. Yes, please, Zeno.
Thank you. I think I've only one advice for other schools. Start very small. And then you can extend the project more and more in detail, but start small, and it's the best thing to do. That's my main advice to all schools attending this webinar.
Thank you. And Rambert, please.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice, Sino. But yeah, for me, from my experience in the project, I thought that like ICH is like a heavy door. but once you open it, you can get really to a wonderful new world. But yeah, it's really hard to open the door, and it's mostly a conceptual, getting behind a conceptual framework is a bit hard. Was hard for me or for us. But now that the toolkit is there, I think the teachers can have have more access towards ICH and education. That's, I think, a good start. But it will be also a challenge to get the toolkit to the teachers. And I think the part where Katrina mentioned, it's about training, now using the toolkit and actively with teachers is another challenge. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it sounds like, also Marcella mentioned that 80% of the teachers were interested, but only about 70, I think there are not that many, actually, 75% of the teachers don't have any sort of experience of having taught. So I think that that really answered to the of your comment. So thank you very much. I think the last question I'd like to also pose for the panelists is about now, I think that at the national level, how the government, education policy makers would then think that this project, this intangible cultural heritage, is such a great element to promote this transformative learning and intercultural dialogue, really to to change the society to be more cohesive and inclusive and so on. What does it take, and what can you do to influence? Do you have any suggestions how these policymakers would change their mind, your national policymakers? Yes, Katerina.
Well, in Greece, we have a lot of space, actually, especially in lower classes, not so much in upper intermediate schools like ours. But still, there is always space. And because all these things that we do are voluntary, are also very well received by the ministry. And as long as we stick to the rules, of course, regulations, legislation, and all those things, which is if you ask me, the most tiring thing to do, all these bureaucratic things that you need to do in order to move students outside the school or bring specialists in, but still we can do it. And the most important thing, we also take advantage of Erasmus programs a lot for funding. Which is a good idea for European people, for European teachers, European schools to do. And you can, if you have also a larger, a concept or an ICH that reflects on more things, like, for example, as I mentioned earlier, the Mediterranean diet, you can link it to absolutely everything. It's like playground for transformative education for teachers. You can link it to chemistry, to biology, to SDG 12, SDG 13, SDG 14, SDG 15, SDG 2, because everybody eats. Does everybody eat? Actually, it is intergenerational. The bearers of the community are within the family, mothers, grandmothers, fathers, who cook and teach their children to cook. It's well-being because it's not junk food. And it's, well, you've got a million things behind it, actually. So you can work for a whole school year by inserting and injecting small things into many, many subjects. You don't need the ministry. You don't need a specific curriculum to do it. You need, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit of enthusiasm and like-minded teachers in the school that would take it to, and it can also spread from the national level within the school or within the country to the regional with Europe Erasmus programs. For example, we are including it in one of ours that has to do with SDG 12, because everybody eats, you consume every day. And of course, we link it to ASP.NET, which is the international level. So it's systems thinking, actually. If teachers can be trained into systems thinking, I think that.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. I think that SDGs connections, and I start seeing that picture together. It's really great. We don't have much time, but I think I just take one more, maybe comment from Christy. Can I ask Christy to comment on? Yeah.
I think one of the things is that in Estonia, for example, culture is included in the national curriculum, but we don't have the knowledge, the know-how, how to teach it. So that's the main thing. So making all kinds of materials that already exist on a national level even, making them available to the teachers or making teachers aware of these. Because I, for example, after the pilot project, stumbled upon some materials that were hidden somewhere in the depths of some website managed by the country. So making teachers more aware of these existing things would already be a very big help.
Thank you very much. And actually, my former profession is journalism. And I really think that those beautiful, good examples, good practices, and I think the videos was really beautifully made. I think these are also communication materials, maybe very influential as well. And if you like to also share with other teachers these good practices, and I think that just one little thing that makes it larger, one of the participants said earlier, I think if you really start assembling these good practices, I think that would become the big force to change the mind of policymakers. It's really just my personal opinion. I think I would like to ask maybe Maite, I don't know, do we have time to share comments or we don't really?
I'm really sorry, but we have a little bit contretemps, as they say in French, and we have to end the discussion now. Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you very much, everybody. Zeno, I see that you would like to talk. It was super interesting, and I think we should continue in in the policy debate, because the comments are super interesting, and we need to get more ideas to be able to continue with this project. So thank you very much, and we will change the program now a little bit, and instead of watching the film, I would like to invite Catherine Magnan from the DG EAC, our dear friends and partners in crime, to give us a couple of closing remarks. Catherine, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Elena. Thank you very much for taking my intervention. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm really, really sorry to interrupt. I think you should go back to your discussion as soon as I'm finished talking, because it's obvious that everyone is so passionate and it's so needed, and it's a wonderful European UN project in, not in the making, but, I mean, in action. And it's clear that, the energy, the enthusiasm, the will to work together and to work and use cultural heritage is really a shared element during all the participants and teachers around the table. So I feel really sorry to interrupt. We just have a string of events today. So that's the reason why. But I really wanted to thank you, Elena, and all the UNESCO partners, but also all the participants, the kids, the teachers, for their commitment and enthusiasm, and for making this project really a very memorable one. When we had the European Year of Cultural Heritage back in 2018, heritage and young people, teaching heritage, the connection to our identity, our roots, but also how we project ourselves in the future was very much one of our priorities. We did several projects, but I think this one really is one of the most impressive, and also thanks to the resource kit, it will live much longer. So I do hope that the resource kit will be much used. You can fully rely on us to make it available, as was said during the exchanges, through e-twinning, through all the networks of schools we also have on the EU side, in addition to the networks that you have on the UNESCO side. I would also like to mention to the participants that we've also now managed to integrate cultural heritage in many EU programs for the young people. So there is a scheme called Discover EU for all 18 years old who apply, and I mean, we cannot the objective is to fund their traveled through Europe to discover Europe's culture, Europe's identity, what countries have in common or not in common, and cultural heritage is now firmly on, the road and the program of this Discover EU scheme. And for those who don't know, Discover EU, you can type that and have all the information. The 18 years old who apply and answer the questions, I mean, there is a little draw, a little selection, just because we cannot fund everyone, but they have basically a trip funded through Europe by train or plane, depending on their journey. We also have a voluntary scheme called the Solidaritico, which allows young people to get experience and volunteer in different organizations. And we have also now managed to have cultural heritage as cultural heritage organizations, as host organizations for those young people. So we are trying also to integrate cultural heritage everywhere we can, in the same fashion as you did with this project in teaching manuals and teaching experiences from mathematics, as we saw with the Japanese hanga printing, to other more classic, more expected topics. And again, we would like to thank you very much, tell you that we are extremely proud of this project. It was a great coordination and cooperation with you as well, Elena, but it's really heartwarming to see the enthusiasm, passion, the witnesses, what kids also had to share of their experience. So I do look forward to us continuing supporting the projects in the form of making the resource kits well known as much as we can through all our possible channels. I thank you very much, and please go back to your fascinating discussion. As we really, I can feel the energy coming through the screen. It would be a shame not to fully use it.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for your nice words. Actually, we cannot really go back to the discussion because we have scheduled it until 5 o'clock, and you seem not to be the only one who has to go. So I would now like to ask Tim Curtis, the secretary of the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage and chief of the Living Heritage Entity, to give us a couple of closing remarks. Tim?
Thank you, Helena, and also thank you, Catherine Magnon, for your comments we just got now. I rather than reading the full text, I just want to really say how enthusiastic I am, having heard all of you speak. I don't get a lot of opportunities in my work to interact directly with teachers, so hearing you speak really gives me a sense of the efforts we've been doing of trying to work with our education colleagues, and the importance of bringing living heritage into schools. It really reinforces your experiences, really reinforce us in understanding that this has been an approach. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's a lot of discussions on how we safeguard living heritage. Our interest from this side is to make sure we live in a world where all of these wonderful traditions continue, and where kids do not get alienated from their community, sometimes through, not in this case, through education systems that might be alien to them. So that's how this all started. But when I hear you talk about what you've done and the success of this project, I feel very enthused that the convention and the world of heritage has to also engage in new ways and innovative ways with the world of education. I heard things about enhancing teacher training. I heard references to issues of conceptual barriers. And then I heard, for example, of living heritage as a playground for transformative education. All of this is incredibly encouraging, because what we're working with, and for us in UNESCO, this is not always easy, is working across two sectors and bringing together a program that benefits both sectors. So in that sense, everything you've said is really encouraging for us, and hearing the children talk and how they react to using this heritage is also encouraging. So for our part, we will continue very hard to work with our colleagues in education, be it in Europe, be it in other parts of the world. And we will work very hard to continue working both with the ministries of cultures and the ministries of educations to also get them to talk together so that these supports, these teacher training supports, these conceptual barriers are broken down. Because often we do use language which can alienate because it's statutory in nature and it doesn't necessarily translate. So what we need is what we've heard are all of these real concrete experiences, which then sort of, let's say, prove the points that we're trying to make sometimes in these intergovernmental contexts. So I'm extremely happy to be here on behalf of UNESCO. I'd like to really thank the European Union for partnering with us on this very important project. And it's been an excellent collaboration. I hope there will be more. I'd also like to thank all of the, in the European Union, I'm being asked to particularly thank Dorota Nige, Anna Grady, and of course, Catherine, yourself for the excellent collaboration. We've also had a collective effort with many of our partners, particularly the Austrian, the Flemish, and the Netherlands National Commissions for UNESCO, who've helped us implement this project. And the ASP.NET national coordinators in the 27 countries of the European Union and the 10 pilot teams of teachers and students. And today I really witnessed the energy that everybody's brought to this project, and it's been incredibly, and what I heard today is very motivating for us to keep moving in this direction. We had two of our own ICH facilitators who've accompanied this project. I'd like to thank them, Vanessa Achilles and Tamaran Jerick, who've been following us from the ICH world and moving into the education world, and who've done a wonderful job working along. Finally, of course, my UNESCO colleagues in Living Heritage, Helena Drobna, Iona Thomas, Suzanne Schnucken, and all the others who've really worked to make this project a success. We've had great support from also our colleagues in the education sector, Julie Saito, Julie who's here with us, and Eric Eschweiler. In Brussels, Oriol has helped us a lot to move the project. I don't know if he's here, but thank you, Oriol, for that. And also some of our colleagues in the science sector who helped move this forward. So I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to really again, give my thanks, particularly to you, the teachers who've been at the forefront of implementing this, and also to let you know that we are encouraged very much by what we've heard you say today. And let us hope that this is a pilot project in the true sense as a beginning of things to come. So with that, I think I know we're short for time, but again, want to thank everybody. Thank you, Helena, and thanks to the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and thank you very much, Tim, for these nice closing words. And I will not add anything else. A great word of thank you to all the participants of the project, be it on the side of the UNESCO chair, Marcello, and the whole team, teachers, students, European Union, the team back in UNESCO, be it in Brussels or support from Venice. It was a great adventure. It lasted 2 years, but I think we are very proud of the results. And I would like to give the very final words to the pilot project from Spain. Eric, could you please show us the video? And I thank you all for participating today.
Hola, me llamo Sara, tengo 15 años y vivo en Cangas, una ciudad preciosa situada a la orilla del mar en Galicia, al noroeste de España. Cada año en febrero con mis amigos participo en el entroido de mi ciudad. Nos disfrazamos, disfrutamos y celebramos el final del invierno. Este año con nuestros profesores trabajamos en una de las figuras más expresivas, o merdeiro. Recibimos una conferencia de la Asociación Cultural A Merdeira. Y ahora que sé más sobre esta figura, me he dado cuenta de lo mucho que tiene que decir sobre nosotros, nuestras tradiciones y nuestra historia. El personaje de O Merdeiro fue creado hace siglos por pescadores que querían vestirse con las ropas de los campesinos para burlarse de ellos. Los agricultores solían viajar a la costa para recoger algas y usarlas como abono para sus campos. Los pescadores los miraban con desprecio y usaban esta figura para expresar su desdén. Así que, en otras palabras, o merdeiro es el resultado de la antigua rivalidad entre campesinos y pescadores, pero sobre todo refleja lo mucho que la cultura gallega está profundamente arraigada en las tradiciones agrícolas y pesqueras. Decidimos usar o merdeiro en la escuela para aprender sobre nuestra cultura, historia y patrimonio cultural inmaterial. Con mis profesores identificamos primero las tradiciones gallegas asociadas a él y las que aún están vivas hoy en día. Luego organizamos una clase especial para presentar a los alumnos lo que es el patrimonio intangible. Hablamos de o merdeiro y sobre todos los aspectos asociados a nuestra cultura, como las tradiciones pesqueras, la poesía oral, la música y muchos más. A continuación, visitamos una empresa pesquera y en particular una asociación de mujeres artesanas de redes. Quedamos muy impresionados. La fabricación de la red requiere tanto ingenio, herramientas específicas, varias técnicas artesanales y paciencia. Nos dimos cuenta de que la fabricación de la red se ha transmitido a través de las generaciones durante siglos y que sigue siendo fundamental hoy en día para los pescadores locales. El espíritu de o merdeiro también se puede encontrar en muchos aspectos de nuestra cultura musical. Muchas canciones se refieren a las labores agrícolas, la fertilidad del suelo y la íntima relación de los pescadores gallegos con el mar. Con nuestro profesor de música aprendimos la canción tradicional Eu son mariñeiro y estudiamos el ritmo de las canciones tradicionales gallegas, que es muy específico. Con nuestra profesora de arte creamos después máscaras inspiradas en o merdeiro. Pasamos por todo el proceso, desde el diseño de los rostros y el corte de las formas hasta la pintura. También usamos la máscara en clase y entendimos que este proceso pudo haber evitado disputas y tensiones entre los dos grupos en el pasado. Obviamente, todo esto no habría sido posible sin el entusiasmo de mi profesora Sabela, sus colegas y el apoyo tanto de la Unesco como de la Comisión Europea. Asistimos a 2 talleres de la Unesco, el primero para aprender a diseñar este proyecto y llevar nuestro patrimonio vivo al aula, y el otro para compartir nuestras experiencias con los demás profesores y estudiantes de Europa. Este proyecto me hizo darme cuenta de que en cada detalle de nuestra cultura viva hay una historia, tradiciones escondidas, técnicas valiosas, conocimientos y valores. Y nosotros, como estudiantes, deberíamos trabajar en ello con nuestros profesores y mantener este patrimonio vivo en el presente y para las generaciones futuras.
So this is the happy ending of our webinar of today and of this project, which will hopefully live its own life out there. I would just like to remind you that all the films you have seen today and one more in all versions, all the materials, and even this session, the recording of this session will be available on our webpage, where you can find all kinds of other very useful materials, as for example, the dive into intangible cultural heritage. So please go and visit. Thank you very much for joining us and have a beautiful evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Bye.